Hey YouTube, this is Gregory Nelson. Welcome to What Did I Just Watch? Episode 9. In this YouTube series, I introduce my favorite people to my favorite moments in professional wrestling. We cover moments that go to the absolute limit and discuss how they create drama, tell a story, and keep those viewers wanting more. Before we get into today's interview, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, subscribe, and if you really want to go the extra mile, you'll click that bell icon so you never miss an episode. My guest today is my good friend, Brian McManimon. Brian and I went to college together. We worked on shows, not only in college, but on a professional level as well. I'm going to give Brian 60 seconds to cut a little promo and tell you about himself. Brian, the floor is yours.
Hey, Greggles. So I'm Brian McManimon. I work as a theater teacher in New York City, which has been really interesting in the post-pandemic life, or during the pandemic life. Not so much theater, but doing a lot of video editing, and currently working with friends in the industry to do a Actors Fund fundraiser for a lot of actors in the industry that are struggling right now. So I will give Greggles the link to donate and to join us for a virtual cabaret coming up in January.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome, Greg.
You can find all that information to Brian's fundraiser in the description below. Now, Brian, if any, what was your first exposure to professional wrestling?
All I know are two things. One is the fact that the John Cena music, do, 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 that's about it. Minus the recent fact that Sasha Banks was in The Mandalorian and was a wrestler in, WWE. And that is the extent of my knowledge of WWE wrestling. So this should be interesting.
To any Mandalorian fans out there, you should check out my last episode, episode 8 with my friend Nani. We cover not only The Mandalorian, but we cover one of Sasha Banks' best matches ever. Now, what we're covering today, today's episode is a rough, quick history of the Hardcore Championship. I spent some time, maybe a little too much time, finding my favorite moments in hardcore title history, and we're going to get into them today. Our first clip is from 1998, where Vince McMahon awards the WWF Hardcore Championship to Mankind. Brian, can you describe the Hardcore Championship?
I mean, it's kind of like smashing something up into tiny pieces and putting it back together and making it look moderately put together, duct tape and tradition and just finding a way to make it work and finding success at the end of the day. I don't know.
I couldn't agree more. That's a pretty good description of it, because a lot of guys on the bottom of the card went after this championship looking for some type of success at the end of the day. After WrestleMania 14, the design of the classic WWE Championship changed when Shawn Michaels lost the belt to Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I think WWE did a good job of utilizing that unused championship belt. Now, the Hardcore Championship matches are contested under no rules, no disqualification, no countout, pinfalls count anywhere, anything goes. Over the next 2 years, the Hardcore Championship attracted most of the mid-card and was contested in some very interesting matches. However, the real popularity of the Hardcore Championship didn't really peak until the mid-2000s. The next clip I showed Brian is from February 2000. It was Test versus Crash Holly for the Hardcore Championship. Now, Brian, there wasn't a whole lot to this match, but I needed to throw it in to really tell the story of what happened with this championship. But did you really get anything out of this clip?
I mean, what I found interesting was just every time I turn around, they're swinging a chair at somebody else, or they're trying to one-up another person, and then just a chair comes flying in or a body comes flying in. I don't know if that's, on par with what WWE is normally like, but the amount of chairs being utilized reminded me of a bad acting scene. It's like, here's a chair, here's a chair. Like, I don't know. It was just kind of surprising how many times you can impale someone with a chair.
This match between Crash and Test is how most hardcore matches went at the time. You see weapons sprawled across the ring, you see brutality, and you also see some interference. And the resolution of this match is Crash Holly's cousin, Hardcore Holly, coming down to the ring and smashing Test over the head with a chair. And Crash crawls through Hardcore Holly's legs and gets the 3 count. After Crash Holly won the Hardcore Championship, he wanted to go down as the greatest Hardcore champion ever. He therefore announced that he would be defending the Hardcore Championship 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as long as a WWE referee is present to count the pinfall. This provided so many comedic moments in WWE. Crash was attacked anywhere and everywhere by people wanting to be the Hardcore champion. Brian, I wish I could just show you hours of Crash Holly footage, but we really only have time to show you one clip. And that clip, Brian, let's talk about it.
I'm dying. I mean, start a wrestling match in the middle of a arcade and then into a ball pit. Like it reminded me of like being at like an old school McDonald's in the 90s, and you've got the playpens and everything else, and all of a sudden, like, you know, 2 wrestlers come in and just start fighting in the middle of the giant ball pit. Like, that's what screamed out to me. I also feel like my childhood was robbed because I didn't have a 3-story slide to go down. Just saying.
I'm pretty sure I was robbed of that too, Brian. After at least 22 Hardcore Championship reigns, so this went on for a while. After at least 22 Hardcore Championship reigns, Crash Holly slowly fell out of the spotlight, but competitors were still hungry to capture the gold. Which brings us to our next clip, which I have titled the WrestleMania 18 Hardcore Championship Hot Potato. This happened throughout the night of WrestleMania 18. They didn't happen in succession. They happened in between all the other matches going on the show.
So it's just like a running around hot potato no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it. Just the you know, the fall from grace at a moment's notice is fantastic, especially with the runaway taxi at the end. You know, that's how you steal a win, baby. You steal it, you hop in a cab and run away, and then you're done. You're on top.
I mean, it's a quick WrestleMania paycheck for a lot of guys not having a big match on the card.
Right.
So a quick breakdown of this. We originally see a Hardcore Championship match between Goldust and Maven. Maven loses the championship to Spike Dudley, who runs in with his own referee. Spike loses to Hurricane. Hurricane loses to Molly Holly. Molly Holly loses to Christian. And it's interesting because in the clip I showed you, we don't see the clip of Molly Holly losing to Christian because it's kind of brutal, and they made the right choice removing that clip.
Oh, really?
Molly Holly is running down a hallway, and she's running towards one of those split doors that divides halfway up.
Right.
And she runs directly into someone slamming the top part of the door into her face. And it's so brutal. It makes 100% complete sense of why they removed that from the clip.
Why do you have a door that's just like the top half and the bottom half in the middle of an arena? What's the function of that?
I have no problem with this.
No, I'm just asking, practically speaking, because we're practical people sometimes.
You never know, Brian. We're technicians. We work backstage a lot. Maybe they had a reason for having just that door, and the officials at WWE found it and were like, we're going to swing this into this chick's face. After that, we see Christian lose the championship to Maven, and Maven drives off in a taxi, hanging out the window with the belt in his hand. And I think it's a pretty great full circle type of moment where you see Maven lose it at the beginning and then retain it at the end.
Yeah, it's that nice like catharsis at the end of a show. Like, we're theater people, so there's that like catharsis at the end where you start off as the hero, you collapse, and you return the victor. Like, yeah. That's some nice catharsis right there. Some good script analysis moments for us.
That's a Hardcore Championship for you in the 2000s. Now, it's time to get into our full-length match. Brian and I will be watching Shane McMahon versus Steve Blackman from SummerSlam 2000. Now, at this time, amongst all this Hardcore Championship chaos, there was a time once or twice where the champion was knocked out or unconscious or even asleep. and someone would take advantage, win the championship, and realize they bit off a little bit more than they could chew. This happened in August 2000. Shane McMahon took advantage of an unconscious Steve Blackman, and you will learn from this match, Steve Blackman is someone to not be messed with. Brian, I think we're ready to get into this match.
Let's do it.
If you want the full experience, go watch this match right now. If we're friends in real life, hit me up. I'll let you borrow my WWE Network info, and you won't be left out. We'll be back in a little bit to see what Brian has to say. And we are back. Brian, opening thoughts on what I decided to show you today.
You have quite the unusual hobby, my friend.
Thank you, Brian.
That was wild. That was wild.
Let me start. Brian, what's the highest piece of trust you've ever been up on before?
Well, highest like point I've been up on for like theater things. I've been up 30. No, I've been up 60. I've been up 60. So about yeah. My old school had a loading bay at 60 feet. And when I walked in, theater nerd things, they didn't have like any fail safe mechanism. It was just a ladder that you climbed up, and you hope you don't slip and fall.
We've all been there.
Which is terrifying. 60 feet's
that's how you learn.
I don't like 30. Yeah, sure. We'll go with that. Teaching America's youth,
And Brian, in our line of work, 40% of the time while we're doing the work up in these high places, we're thinking about not falling. So, what did it feel like to see someone fall?
I mean, terrifying. No one ever wants to see that. I think I said to you during the while we were watching it, like, we had actors that we would fly, and they're freaking out at being 10 feet in the air. And I'm like, he's like climbing up willy-nilly at, 30, 40, 50 feet. Like, yikes.
And to be honest, this really isn't the most obscure thing Shane McMahon has ever jumped off of. He jumped off the Hell in a Cell. He's definitely done a dive like this before onto the big show. And he's literally a glorified stuntman. I love his work. Even in Loss, I love his work.
I mean, like, it is really impressive because, they come around and do this again, and that there's all these like precautions in place. But even knowing that and watching it happen, you're like, oh God, please don't do anything dumb. Nope, you did it. You fell. It's stuff like that.
Well, that being said, Brian, let's get into this beat by beat breakdown of this match. Before we even see the match, I thought I needed to show you this little scene beforehand. Lillian Garcia is backstage interviewing Shane McMahon about this other storyline going on at the pay-per-view about Stephanie McMahon and Kurt Angle. Shane doesn't care. He's there to defend his hardcore championship. He's focused on the match. And out of the blue, Steve Blackman comes with a kendo stick and a trash can, ready as hell, hits the trash can with the kendo stick and is like, let's go. And Shane just runs off. As far as the entrances go, Shane just runs out as his music plays, thinking Blackman is right behind him. Blackman makes his entrance and really needs to lure Shane into the ring. I mean, at this moment, Shane knows he's screwed, but they have this little hot potato moment where they toss the kendo stick back and forth. Shane wants no involvement in this match. He's very aware of the situation he's gotten himself into, and he doesn't like it one bit.
Nope.
We see Steve Blackman give Shane a free shot with the kendo stick, but Blackman counters, and it turns into this tug of war over the kendo stick. And then it almost immediately just spills into the crowd.
There's a part of me that wonders what like ancient Roman Colosseum events were like, because I can only imagine that they turned into this at some point in time. I mean, they literally had guys getting killed and animals being slaughtered, whatever, for entertainment. Not condoning animal violence, but like that was what they did at the time. And all I could think of was like they're just beating each other up in the middle of like 50,000 people, and everyone's okay with it. Like wild at best. Wild at best.
So returning to ringside, we see Steve Blackman hit this crazy pump kick off the guardrail, knocking Shane to the ground. And that brings us to my next note of this match, which is more weapons. After a short assault with a trash can lid on Shane, Blackman starts bringing out all of these weapons. He brings a leather strap in the ring. He brings a trash can. He brings these short little kendo sticks. And I think at that moment is when you said, it feels like a disheveled props closet.
I did. I did. It felt like, you're in the middle of something and then you just pull out one thing and then you pull out another thing and then you pull out another random thing. Like, I just felt like how many more pieces of whatever is he going to pull out to smash over this guy's head?
They've gotten real creative with it over the years too. You see some really great stuff pulled out from under the ring and think, oh my God, I can't believe they just made that work.
What was freaky though was right before, I don't know if it was this clip or another clip, but I had seen like a fire extinguisher sitting at the base of it, and I'm like, I hope that's not a prop being used, and that's just sitting there for like if it needs to be used. But that did cross my mind of like, is someone going to be attacked with a fucking fire extinguisher?
Brian, would that disappoint you if that's happened in a match before?
Probably not.
It's happened in at least 15 or 20 matches.
Amazing. Amazing. It's like a Batman, it's like a Batman distraction tactic. It's like, okay, we're gonna spray you with the fire extinguisher stuff and then throw it at you and knock you out and run away. It's like Batman at its best.
Next, we see Steve Blackman place a trash can over Shane's head. And these kendo sticks that Steve Blackman has have always been used so interestingly as he just like lays 30 shots within 10 seconds into his opponent. Next, we see the match interrupted by Test and Albert. We've seen Test already. Albert is actually from our area, Brian, Peabody, Massachusetts.
Represent.
Test drops a huge elbow through a trash can lid right onto Blackman. And then Test and Albert get Blackman to his feet, and Shane lays in his textbook boxing throws with his little float like a butterfly, sting like a bee dance.
It was an interesting move. Considering how the rest of the fight has gone so far, where it's like so aggressive and so like just over the top, like, whatever. And then you go to this where it's like this weird, like total juxtaposed fighting style. I don't know. It was very weird, but funny to watch. And then it turns around and then like he tries to land the knockout punch and just gets absolutely destroyed on the other side of it. And it's like you kind of don't feel bad for him, and you're almost like, at least for me, I have like that Schadenfreude effect where I am very excited to watch someone else fail and someone like to watch someone else's miseries in that moment and just cackle. So yeah, I enjoyed that a lot.
Next, we see Shane hit Blackman over the head with a street sign, and then this 3-on-1 assault finds its way to the outside of the ring. Blackman is dragged by this leather strap over to the technical area, and they have these speakers set up. Brian, what do you have to say about these speakers?
I mean, as you always worry about the gear because you know how many zeros are at the end of that price tag, and then as I start to realize what he's doing, I'm like scared that he's going to turn into like a cartoon character and just get absolutely flattened like a pancake. Kind of wanted to see it. Didn't happen, but that's okay.
We did see Blackman roll out of the way, but it did set up for something much better. They find their way back to the entranceway, and Albert goes to hit Blackman with a kendo stick. He misses and hits Test, and this leads to Blackman gaining some of that advantage back. Once Shane realizes that Blackman has the advantage back, he takes off, and what does he do, Brian?
He climbs the trusses.
He begins to climb the trusses. Shane is about 10 feet up, Blackman looking up to him, and Blackman starts to follow. They get probably up to 50 feet up on this truss, and Blackman catches up to Shane and starts laying licks with this kendo stick into Shane. And when the third lick hits, Shane just falls. Brian?
All I can think of is Obi-Wan screaming, "I have the high ground." Like, Like if Anakin Skywalker was gonna die another way, I would have really wanted it to be like, no, Anakin, I have the high ground, and just fall off. Like that's what I envisioned. But
So after Shane falls, we see Blackman turn around, staring down the SummerSlam crowd. And you can just tell he's thinking, I'm not going to climb down from this thing. So you see Blackman drop a huge elbow from at least 40 feet. As soon as he lands the elbow, he covers Shane for the pinfall and gets the 3 count and is the new hardcore champion. Brian, we're actually going to take a quick sec to show your reactions from our watch along, and they're definitely a sight to see.
Up by being 10 feet in the air, let alone this. What the hell? Oh, he's gonna jump, isn't he? No, this is a terrible idea. This is terrible. What are you doing? Oh shit. I like it's just like all the tech gear. It's like here's a bunch of cable.
And Brian, after watching that, do you have any final thoughts on this match?
I mean, clearly I need to start watching this because this was actually pretty damn entertaining. And I have Greg's login, so I'm just gonna start watching some clips.
You're more than welcome to, Brian.
I mean, this was great. I'll come back and do another round. How about that?
Yes, I love it. I love that idea. I'll find you something completely fucked up to watch.
Lovely.
That being said, if you're still watching this, God bless you. Don't forget to like this video. Leave a comment. Tell me how I can improve this show. Subscribe. It helps, I swear. Thanks again to Brian for being on the show. Finally, I don't want to be doing this forever. I want to get back to work, so stay safe, stay home. If you go out, wear a fucking mask. Believe in science, be kind, and just support each other. Thanks again for watching. Take care.